I know way too well the feeling of knowing I shouldn't do something with my money, but then doing it anyways, and then the pleasure and the guilt and the anxiety of it all. But I'm proud to say that that's no longer me. And so today I want to share how I got rid of money anxiety, how I stopped feeling guilty while spending money, and how I have peace on a way to a 3.5 million retirement with my family. There are 4 pieces to the puzzle that I want to unlock for you today. And so piece number 1 is actually going to start with a question. Is there a number in your mind that represents the number in your bank account under which you feel anxious? For me, it was $100,000. Anytime I had less than $100,000 in my bank account, I would be kind of like anxious, and I would try to save money, and I would be like, oh my gosh, I have so little. But anytime I had more than $100,000, I would be like, oh yeah, I got this. I have money. I can spend it. I can take risks. And so I splurged whenever I had more than $100,000. I panicked when it dipped below $100,000. I ended up buying courses. I bought stocks. All of that were bad decisions that would actually lose me money. But then what I had to realize was 6 figures isn't as much of a milestone. It's not a goal. It's just a checkpoint. And so I started implementing a mentality I called rolling milestones, or rolling checkpoints. And so instead of static savings, like I want to save X amount of money, or I want to save $1,000 a month, or until I get to $100,000, if I only had X, then I would be happy. I implemented rolling milestones. And so my goal is to save $100,000. And then with that $100,000, I'm going to invest it in assets that I am not going to touch for the long term. And then I'm back at 0 again. And so 0 to 100, 0 to 100, 0 to 100, or 0 to 50, 0 to 50. Recently, it's more been like 0 to 20, 0 to 20, and I save around that much money every few months. And so at the end of the day, I am not looking at the number that is invested, right? I'm only paying attention on whether or not I can save $10,000, $20,000 every few months and funnel it into my investments. That's the only metric that I'm looking at. There's no number beyond which I am super splurgy or comfortable spending. There's no number under which I am like anxious and fearful. I just know that I have a plan and I'm following it, and I have a peaceful relationship with the money I'm making, the money I'm saving, the money I'm spending, and the money I'm investing. Which brings me to the next part, right? Like, you want to have peace in your relationships that come from a peaceful spending plan. And so the majority of arguments that come in relationships that come from money has to do with spending, right? It's different spending identities clashing that causes all the conflicts and arguments. For example, when I first met my wife, she was a big spender. She believed in enjoying the money that she spent in the moment. Meanwhile, I got a finance degree, right? And I thought reading 20 investing books would turn me into the next Warren Buffett. And so I was saving anywhere from 50 to 80% of my income at any given month, and really just like trying to figure out how to invest and how to get outsized returns. Now, I ended up blowing tens of thousands of dollars buying small cap stocks, which I don't recommend anyone to do. Now I've switched to ETFs, but anyways, my wife and I constantly clashed during our first few months together over our spending habits. She was buying things like LV bags, not ridiculously expensive LV bags, just things that were outside my comfort zone of what I would spend money on. The thing that got us over that hump was sitting down and crafting a values-based budget. We laid out what was valuable to me and what was valuable to her, and we learned that we value different things, right? Like, she might value a nice article of clothing as much as I value a nice meal. Like, she would not wait in line and spend 300 RMB or around like $40, $50 on a meal. I would gladly do so. Meanwhile, if she saw something nice, like an article of clothing, she would gladly spend money on it. But I'm thinking, if I buy a piece of clothing, it has to replace something I already have at home, right? And so there's just different mentalities that exist when spending money, and that's perfectly okay. But what we want to equate is the fact that we both value our own spending habits equally. And what we value above those spending habits is building a future together. right? Like that's the thing we value most, right? That's the thing that holds a couple together, is a shared future, right? Like the moment your future does not have your significant other, your future won't have your significant other, right? And so why would it make sense for us to respect each other's spending habits and savings habits? And so we made that number one priority, right? It's what kind of future we want to build together. How much money do we need to save to get to that future? We agree on that amount, right? How much time is it going to take? How much money are we saving? And then from then on, we say, hey, this amount of money we can spend on whatever we value most. And let's sit down and think about, are we spending money on anything that we don't actually value, right? And so for example, my wife actually sat down and she looked at the amount of bags that she had and she was like, you know what, like I actually have enough bags. Like, could I always have one nicer bag? Of course. But for our purposes, that's not what I should be valuing right now, right? And so, I mean, right now my family, like my wife and I are like solely focused on like providing the best environment for our son to grow up in. That means not skimping on formulas, not skimping on baby diapers and all that. And that's our focus right now. That's what we value today. And so these values change from eras of our lives to another era of our lives, right? And that's great, right? Like if you're able to make a value-based budget that reflects shared priorities, for example, like valuing experiences over stuff or buying whatever you want within reason, all of that is fair game then. Right now, if my wife buys a bag, like great, like I'm happy for her. We're within budget. I know I am saving the right amount of money, that our family's on the right track because I'm the one that handles the savings and investing. Everything else doesn't matter. And so we set clear spending and savings targets, and now we spend our money and we don't feel guilty at all. And we shouldn't feel guilty at all. Money is a tool. It should not have you feeling a certain way. And so the next thing that we want, the third thing, is a peaceful wealth building and wealth protection plan. Now, I mentioned I started reading finance books when I was 20, and I read like 20 finance books since then. I have a finance degree. I started buying all of these small cap stocks, wanted to be the next Warren Buffett. Was a total introvert, so I stayed at home, and like staying at home and making money felt like a dream to me because I didn't have to talk to anyone, and the stock market meant I didn't have to communicate with anyone. And so for a while I had that dream of just sitting there and making money. Now, reality hits, right? Like making money in the stock market as an active investor is a statistical improbability that professional fund managers can't even manage to achieve outsized returns in the markets. So now I invest in diversified ETFs with proven long-term growth. An example of that, because I'm Canadian, is something like XEQT. Not an investment recommendation, I'm just sharing what I'm investing in. And so it has the American total stock market, it has the Canadian stock market, it has international stocks, emerging stocks, small cap, it's got everything. So that's an example of one of the ETFs that I invest in. And I know that by doing so, I've hedged away, I've diversified away a lot of risk that I would have taken if I had bought individual stocks. And I get the allure of crypto, of options trading, of stock picking, but that's just not a game that I choose to play anymore because my efforts are now focused on myself and this YouTube channel and my family and my work. And the most important part is now I sleep soundly. I sleep peacefully. My hands are off the market. I didn't even check the markets yesterday. I just let my ETFs do the work. I contribute regularly, and this is so freeing, right? So instead of checking the markets every single day and not really knowing what you're doing, not really confident, now I just have total peace that my finances are taken care of in the long term, that my returns are reliable in the long run. If this is attractive so far, like building out this system, I think there are really 4 transformations everyone needs to make to build a automatic wealth building system. So click the link below. I have a free training that goes over that. But moving on, the last part is a peaceful money management system. I hated tracking expenses, but at the same time, I dreaded not knowing how much I was spending and saving every single month. I mean, I wished like I could snap my fingers and just know the cash flows that are coming in and out and like everything's categorized, but life isn't that ridiculously easy, right? And so my wife and I had a point where we were constantly clashing about like what we should be spending money on, like which category should we spend money on. And I was thinking like we should spend more money on vacations and experiences. And she was like, you know, like we should have some nice stuff in our homes that lasts us a long time. If I buy like a luxury article of clothing, I can wear it for the next 20 years. Versus in my mind, I'm like, I can buy a Uniqlo shirt and wear it for 10 years and it'll still be cheaper than a Burberry LV shirt. I still think I'm right on that. But again, When we set up joint spending and savings targets and automatic transfers between these separate bank accounts. So we opened a separate savings account and a separate spending account and a separate investment account. We didn't really have anything left to argue over because we had already laid out our values-based budget. We had already laid out our long-term plan. And so all that was left was us to actually make it happen, right? Make those transactions, make those investments. And all of that can happen automatically with automatic transfers, dividend reinvestment plans, automatic purchases of ETFs and mutual funds. And so now our wealth just builds on itself predictably and automatically. And it's immune to our indecisiveness. It's immune to our opinions, right? We set a plan and we're just sticking with it over the long term. The only discussions that we have now are discussions around like whether or not we're meeting our spending targets. And for the most part, we are. We did do something that I call slack budgeting. And so we actually budget a little bit more than what we actually spend on average. And so there's always a little room. And just having that extra room creates so much flexibility in your spending target. Like, sure, could I be saving an extra few $100s a month? Yeah, I could, but I much rather have the peace of not having to talk about money if we're over budget, because we're technically not over budget because I budgeted for us being over budget. And that just comes from us knowing each other's spending patterns and behaviors and what we would buy and what we won't. And it's all very predictable because we understand each other as a couple. Just not having discussions about penny pinching and where every dollar is going is just so much more healthy for the relationship. So what does all of this mean for you? Well, it means that every piece of money drama can actually be replaced with calm, clear, and controlled thinking and decisions that come as a result. You can stop riding that emotional roller coaster and start enjoying life while still building wealth automatically. If you actually set spending targets and savings targets and you treat them as checkpoints and not finish lines, you'll free yourself from the panic of not having enough and splurging when you feel like you're rich. And so you won't feel guilty as a result of your spending money. You'll also align your spending with your partner so you can co-create this values-based budget. You swap conflict for a little bit more clarity, and you want every dollar that you spend or save to be an expression of what matters most to the both of you, right? Like, you are, as a couple, a unit working towards a shared future. And you want this wealth that you're building to grow automatically, to grow peacefully. You ditch the stress and anxiety inducing options trading and stock picking. Instead, you have diversified ETFs that you know will grow over time, because as a human race, we become more productive and we grow over time. And you manage all of this effortlessly because you have a cash flow management system with different bank accounts with automatic transfers that make the easy decisions easier, good decisions easier, and the bad decisions more difficult. And so this 4-part puzzle, if you can put it together, will give you the freedom to live fully today, but also build a free life for you tomorrow. And so if you're curious on the 4 transformations I think you need to implement this system, click the link below, watch the free training, and tell me what you think. I read every email. With that, I'll see you in the next video.